Welcome back to Season 3 of ASD Market Week's podcast, Let's Talk a Little Shop. With your host, me, Emily Lewis. We're going to tackle the hard subjects. So buckle up and get ready for Season 3. We're going to have a lot of fun. Welcome back to ASD Market Week's podcast, Let's Talk a Little Shop. We're about to dive into episode 2 in a 2-part series with guest Emily Bensen. If you haven't heard of Emilie, Emilie is an author of The Ultimate Boutique Handbook and The Retail Mindset, which went to #1 on Amazon. Emilie is also the founder of the Boutique Training Academy, which offers a series of training programs for retailers and boutique owners. So in our first episode, we talked to Emilie all about how she started in the industry, different roles that she's had, how she owned a fashion truck at one point. And we even dive a little bit into her mindset and what different mindset tips and tricks she recommends as a retailer. So in episode 2, we're going to dive deeper into the retail landscape. We're going to even get into the nitty-gritty of talking all about inventory, markdowns, when you should mark things down, how to create a buying plan. So definitely don't sleep on episode 1. Go back and listen to episode 1. But let's dive into episode 2 with Emily Bensen.
In my book, basically each chapter I call a mindset move. So what I want to do is move you from an old mindset where you're stuck, where everything's oversaturated, there's so much competition, to the mindset of competition's a myth. Like, I'm only competing with myself. Like, there's no one that's going to put me up against another retail store and say, this one, I mean, maybe they will. But, you know, if you create that in your head and continuously say, oh, there's so much competition out there. Oh, I'll never succeed because, X, Y, and Z is affecting it. Well, that's going to stop you from scaling. Like, I hate to say it, you could have all the data and marketing behind you, but if you don't believe in yourself, like, what the heck? Like, or you believe there's too much out there, I think, again, each mindset move in the book is a little bit different for each level too, right? So I've even had people who like start making a ton of money, a ton of profit, but they're still like flying coach. They're still, taking their own photos. They're still doing things that it's like, hey, you have the money, get the support you need, like leverage that money into more support for you so you can take a vacation, so you can not have to edit your photos, whatever. So I think, for me, the mindset piece of it is something that I don't see many other sort of like retail people talking about, but every person that joins a program with me, they'll come in. We always take like welcome, we do a welcome questionnaire to understand kind of where someone's at and and what they need the most. They're always like, I need the marketing help. I need Facebook ads. They like have all these things they need. And at the end, they're like, the thing that changed me most was the mindset work. Like, that is what did it for me. Like, all the other stuff is great, but like, I'm happier in my life. I'm calmer with my kids. I don't feel like I have to be on all the time, and so those are the breakthroughs that I get excited about, because being an anxious, like postpartum depression kind of gal, like the mindset things, like with, good therapy and maybe medication, all that stuff, right? Like I can't solve like deep trauma problems, right?
Your 3 tenets are really great though. And it's not just for retailers. I mean, when you're talking about mindset, marketing, and margins, that's just good business. It's your mindset is your foundation. It is you. It's your health. And then your marketing and your margins, again, it's your promotion and your sales. And that is a good lesson for any entrepreneur and any business person, period. So it makes sense.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I think it helps me organize the problems that people come to me with, because I get more, I joke, and every new assistant that starts with me is like, you get the craziest emails. Like, people will pour their hearts out to you. The titles help on like 9 out of 10 emails you get, like in all capital letters. Like, people come to me in times of distress. So I think if you can't address the like how they got there mentally, or how they got there, then you can't really solve the problem. So that's how I like to kind of like funnel it for my own, just how I'm going to help someone is like, okay, they feel stuck this way. Their cash flow sucks and they need a little help with branding. That's my formula to like get you to scale.
Yeah. Well, okay. So speaking of scaling and cash flow, you have a line on your website that says your training program is it proves to increase sales by 20 to 50% in less than 6 months. That's a pretty bold statement.
Okay, yes, but remember, we're talking percentages. So, like, if you're doing 1,500 a month, can we get you to 3 grand a month? Like, that's
I
a
mean,
50%, right?
I applaud the boldness. I love it. But tell us how you can guarantee that. Like, tell us how it's a proven system. I mean, without giving all your secrets away, because we obviously want people to work with you.
I mean, I'll
But
give all my secrets away. I'll tell
I
that's
love
my problem. Here's the thing, I'll tell everyone exactly how to do it. 9 out of 10 people will never implement it,
it.
and
Yes,
unless they kind of,
true,
like, get accountability, they get this
true,
right?
true.
So here's how we do it, okay?
Okay,
First and foremost, we have to analyze your sales.
okay,
Too many retailers are just being like, "I did X amount last month." Okay, well, what was your average retail price? How many units was that? How many markdowns did you have? How many discounts, refunds, right? We have to dig into the numbers of your sales because they tell a story.
yes,
I'm not convinced everyone looks at their numbers, and I'm not convinced that everyone understands how to read their numbers. So, one of the first
right,
things I get into is let's pull your data, let's put it in some pivot tables,
okay.
understand how you're selling, especially by department. That's a big focus that I tend to
Mhm.
zoom in on is okay, so top level store, this is what your sales were, but by department, how many units, how many dollars, what's your average
Mhm.
retail price, all that stuff really digging in department wise. And then if there's certain departments that do great, let's actually go deeper into that. Okay.
Okay.
So, we're talking garden tools. Okay. Do you sell more hose or rakes? Like what's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
difference, right? Do you sell big ones, small ones, or metal ones? Like we can get
yeah.
into so much analysis. And I think that a lot of people just aren't doing it or don't know how to do it.
Okay,
So that's step one is like, let's look at your sales analysis.
right.
From there, we create a buying plan for you. And again, a lot of people are going to market with no buying plan. Now, don't get me wrong, Target, Walmart, they have a very tight buying plan. They know exactly to the penny what they're spending. But
Yeah,
the average small retailer that has like, under 100 employees, under 500 employees, like they might not be going with a really tight buying plan. I hope so.
yeah,
But
yeah.
they might not be. So what we do is we create a really realistic buying plan too, where you're not overbuying. There's a lot of people who teach buying and have systems out there. And I find that all the time they're overbought. Like people come to me, they're like,
Mm,
I'm so overbought from the way the other person teaches it. I would rather you underbuy, especially if you can chase into product. If you can't chase into product, fine. Like we'll work on that. But I want everyone to have a monthly buying plan by department so they understand exactly what they're selling, when their markdown strategy is, like really putting together a clear buying and markdown strategy so that they can be more profitable.
So
That's really how we get the numbers.
that's what I was gonna dive into because for those who might be a small retailer or are thinking about opening a retail store, a buying plan. What is it? Without going into all the details, it is essentially a calendar that you're saying month by month, department by department, what you're going to buy down to the size runs, the colors, and when you're going to mark it down, at what percentage, and then what your profit is going to be on that.
Yeah. So most people in a small business setting, unlike a corporate retail setting, won't get into like the markdown strategy or the sales strategy like until they're in season. We don't tend to find many people that are truly planning markdowns. What we want for you though is to, let's say for the next 6 months, understand how many units of accessories you're going to buy.
Okay.
And within that, what is the breakdown of accessories? Are, belts in there? Okay, well, how many belts are you going to buy? Okay, what styles, what color, what sizes, right? This
Yes.
doesn't have to be a guess. Now,
Yes.
it's going to be a guesstimate because
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
we
Yeah.
never know how things are going to sell or like how things are going to hit, but over time, like in your retail store, you should be really firm in what sells and what doesn't. Like I'm sure, like I said, I started out with like fascinators and black chunky chain jewelry.
Yeah.
I learned pretty quick that didn't work. You know what I did learn? If I brought in a Breton stripe or anything nautical, like it was gone in a day, no
Yeah.
matter what I
Yeah.
priced it at, right?
Yeah.
Like we're just in Boston, like people think they're sailors, like I
Yeah.
don't know, like so like we learned that quick. And so for
Yeah.
me, like when I work with someone on a buying plan, it's not only is it by month, but we're also looking at seasonality, and we're looking at
Okay.
how can we shift. So what we learned last year in the sales analysis, for example, I had a client, we saw a huge pop of dresses in June last
Yeah.
year. And so
Okay.
we're planning, this upcoming year, and I'm saying like, "Hey, what happened in June?" Like, we weren't working together. What was the deal there? And they're like, "Oh, well, the first week of June, we did a huge dress
Mm,
spread. Like, that was our whole thing, and we just sold a ton of dresses."
okay.
I said, "Well, your dress numbers in May are pretty low, and, like, May is
Yeah.
historically, like, a good dress month. So what if you launched dresses in May, and then we
Uh-huh.
sold through June?"
Mhm.
They, like, tripled their sales in dresses in 2 months,
Oh,
like, year
wow.
over year, you know
Okay.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
because we brought it in earlier, we were more conscious, like, we looked at the sales numbers and we reacted to them appropriately, like we should
Okay.
have, right?
Yeah.
Too many people, because they don't have a buying plan and they're not analyzing their sales regularly, are overbuying in departments that aren't selling. They're holding
Mhm.
on to things for way too long and aren't marking them down because they like, "It should sell, it should I just need to," it's like, no, if it doesn't sell in 3 to 4 weeks, like, get rid of it unless it's really
Yeah.
I make these blanket statements and I'm like, "Well, asterisk," like, there's
Yeah.
other things,
Always.
right?
Always. Yeah.
There always is. But with an accurate sales analysis and an accurate buying plan that then as you buy, so, like, as you're buying the month, let's say, right now it's November. Let's say we're buying January or February right now.
Mhm.
Okay, so we have our buy plan, we buy for that, we make sure our deliveries hit, we make sure what we receive actually matches that buying plan because sometimes that doesn't work.
Oh, yeah.
And then after we do a recap and we say, "Okay, did we sell how we thought we would? Where were the discrepancies? Where were we wrong? Where did something hit and we were like super
Yeah.
surprised that we chased into?"
Yeah.
All the data that we're constantly getting from our sales numbers should be
Yeah.
feeding into our future buys. That's
Yes.
really,
Yes.
and so it's like you always want to be looking at that. So really for me, I mean, I don't think there's anyone that's gone through my programs and, like, again, I could be wrong. There's obviously people that, like, don't do what I say and blah, blah. I can't, guarantee 100%. But, like, the people that implement the plan that I give them, that they really start to understand their sales data, they start to make these adjustments even in store of how they're displaying things and how they're marketing, what the marketing focus is. When we kinda roll that out across everything and we say, how you're selling should be how you're buying, should be how you're marketing, should be how you're laying out the floor, and
Yes.
all of that is very holistic,
Yes.
we can totally get your sales up 20 to 50% in a very short amount of time when you start to, if you have a shorter timeline program, right? Like if you're
Yeah.
buying 2 years out, like it's going to take us time to move that. But
Yeah.
most of the categories we're kind of talking to have a pretty short season like cycle, So
Yeah.
if you can get product fast, we can adjust your business really
Yeah.
fast.
Well, and I find when you get smarter about your buys and you start to document and put pen to paper with numbers, in a few months, you also start to see what margins you're making off of product, what moves, what doesn't. And then you can really start to be very smart about those high margin buys, which is what ASD is all about. I mean, that is why people come to ASD. It is the high margin point of sale purchase, all those things that we know get us when we go into a retail store. I mean, I will be in line and there's, five things in my hand. And by the time I get up to the cash wrap, there's seven because I picked up two little things on the way that I just had to have.
Yes.
And I do think that time and energy and effort into your buying plan will also start to tell you how you can make more money quick with
Yeah.
those high
Well,
margin purchases.
you're right, and I would say if I were a buyer listening to this right now, making my plans for ASD, like, the number one thing I would do would to be go analyze my sales, see what my
Yes.
top selling departments are, and then
Yep.
focus on those areas. Like, go to the ASD website, look up the vendors that are gonna be in that area, in that department, and
Yep.
think about how you can find margin builders in your best selling departments because
Yes.
that's where it's really gonna move the needle for you, right?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
to me, the more intimate you are with the numbers and honestly, like, more money, more problems, truly, like, the more money you make in your business, the more problems you potentially could have because you could spend that money erroneously, and
Yes.
that's what happens. Most people are just like, "Whoa, I'm making all this money," like, and people listening are probably like, "That's not me yet." Like, there will be a point where you start
Yeah.
to make serious money, 20K, 30K months, 40K months, higher than that, right? Like to me, it's really there. And that's when people start to freak out because they're, wait, I'm making 30K. I'm looking on my POS system. I made $30,000 this month and I have no money in my bank account and my credit cards are maxed out. Like what the heck, right? That's a buying problem and that's fixable, right? So, from my perspective, I think utilizing and leveraging ASD's resources that are there can also help get you out of these problems pretty quickly because you're bringing in margin builders.
Yeah. No, 100%, it is true. And I will say, little tip, beauty right now is where we are seeing our buyers spend a lot of their time because it is super low price points for some of these small point of purchase, the mask, the lip balm, those small things that people want and need, but they're not going to spend a big amount of cash on, but they're so easy to have in your store and stock and so easy to get restocked. And that's another problem that you're going to have. You're going to start buying, things are going to start selling, and then you're going to find yourself in the middle of the month with an inventory problem on the other side of the spectrum. Not too much that you have to mark down, but too little and you need more coming in. And so, that's where I think shows like ASD really help, and really getting into ASD and making those relationships with those vendors at those shows and having them on tap when you need 100 more units quickly because you just looked at your buying numbers and that mask that everybody wants for them, their friends, it's the gifting item, is just selling out and you need 100 more.
Yeah. I mean, I would say it's a rare situation where someone's underbuying. That's maybe like 2 out of 10 people. The 8 out of 10 people generally are overbuying because listen, it's really fun to buy for your store. Like this is kind of why we all do it, right? I mean, that's a big part of it, right?
Yeah.
And once you start to spend more money, you're like, okay, there has been a couple of occasions though where we've had clients come in and they're like, I just can't break through this number, And it's like, I had one person, it was astounding, honestly. She came to me in like June. I looked at all her numbers. I said, you're not buying enough. Like you're selling out to like, do you even have a back room? Like you have a store. Like this is crazy. We had her basically double her buys, like in the right places, in the right ways. She was going from like 45, 50K months and had 100K month in August. And I was like, that's like, you can't even include that in a testimonial because it's an outlier, but it was a true testament though to like, you almost don't believe that you could sell more and you're safe where you are. You're like, this is safe. Like I'm selling out. I don't have a lot of backs, right? There is that comfort level. But really when you underbuy, you're just missing out on potential more money.
I know. You're leaving money on the
I totally agree.
Well, I do want to shift for a minute because I want to talk about the future of retail. And we've obviously been through, the ups and downs, everybody that is, still around and survived 2008 and COVID, all in the same generation. I feel like it's the one generation that has survived 2008 and now COVID. And this is very fresh because just this weekend, a personal favorite of mine, living in Southern California in Los Angeles, Ron Herman, after 45 years of business, just said they're shutting doors. Now we know that they've shut down numerous locations, but they said they're done and they're shutting doors. Do you feel hopeful for retail, or what is your outlook for 2024 and beyond with retail?
I do think that there is still the main street, hometown, local place. Like I still see those people doing pretty well. Now, has it gone down a bit since COVID? Like, yeah. But I do think that driven with events and in-store, parties and I'm seeing like people making wreaths right now. And, you have to you need a reason for people to come in. And so I think that it's probably harder in LA because it is bigger, it is more diverse, right?
Yeah.
So I think when you're talking big city, I think location, if you can get in a neighborhoody area where there is a lot of residential and there is the local bake shop, things like that, that I think is still really working. Because frankly, like online, it isn't such a automatic situation anymore. Like, Amazon, you still can't get next day everything, right? And so I think there is this myth of like, oh, online, you want to have this instant gratification, da da da. Like, that's not the honest truth. I think like there is this beauty of being able to go into a store, buy what you want, and walk home from it. Like yesterday, we went to the store. I needed jammies for my daughter. She was like totally outgrown all the ones we had. I was like, let's go get some new ones. And she wore some new ones last night. Like that's a need, And so I don't think that brick and mortars are going to go away, but I think we have to be more intentional about them and make sure that the experience is great, the in-store situation is great. And I think from a bigger perspective, when we talk about retail in general, I think there are certain categories where we're going to see shifts away from maybe new and manufactured things to more thrift or more consignment or bartering and like I think especially in the clothing area, I think we're going to see consumers be really concerned about their footprint and sustainability, which I know is something you guys and from a bigger industry perspective are really talking about. And so I see that as being a really big opportunity actually. Like I have a friend who has a resale shop for luxury like designer goods and like she's doing really well, and like and I find that to be like a really cool niche. And like she just she renovated her second store, but since I've known her, she went from one store to two and then kind of like a really small area like Saratoga Springs, New York, and like she opened near Albany, like it's like that great main street downtown, like so I think she's doing a lot of things right. So I do think there's going to be certain categories where we see a consumer shift into like sort of less consumerism, more resale and things like that. Now, do I think that like the new clothing business is going to go away? No, I don't think so. But my hope is that more people will become more conscious of what they're I mean, honestly, right now I'm just bored on TikTok Shop because everyone's selling the same 2 jackets and long sweaters and I'm like, we just need, or a graphic tee of Santa. Like I can't anymore. So I think in general across the board, people are looking for places and spaces where they can be more authentic, they can express themselves more authentically, they can dive into a hobby that they love so much. Like I've gotten really into gardening, which is I'm an old lady now, but like I love going to garden centers and seeing their assortment. And I have my very specific garden centers that I know have certain things. So like I kind of shop. I'm like, these people have good this one has a good that. So I do think that like there is still space for all of it. But I think that if retail stores don't keep up with what the big people are doing and seeing that Ron Herman close and investigating why they think that happened, what's the shift? Is it really an LA kind of, like what is that? I don't think that every store closing is the end of retail. Like this retail, someone a couple years ago was talking retail apocalypse, but like retail is the oldest profession in the world. Like we've been bartering and trading for goods like for so stop, like retail's not going anywhere. Let's be all honest with ourselves. But I do think we
survived 2008. Like we survived worse than that. Survived the Great Depression. Like, come on. It's
and listen, like during hard times, there is the shift, and we know this historically. Again, we don't have to operate in a bubble out here in retail land. There's lots of great newsletters online. Like I love some of the people that put together like the headlines from retail. Like the balance between like corporate profit / greed / the end of capitalism, but recognizing that retail is a forever kind of business. Where do you want to fit in there? Where do you feel best? Where do you feel authentic? Where do you feel like there's a future? And then where amongst the like revenue scale do you want to live? Like you don't have to have 15 stores. You don't have to be $1 million business. Like what works for you? I think that's the bigger thing also, especially as an independent retailer, like what's going to work for you in your life? Because I don't think the whole, like, I work 24/7, I am a hustler. Like, I think that badge of honor is kind of like getting crusty these days. And like, like I think we all want 4-day work weeks. We all want, to have remote work, like all that stuff that still extends into retail. Like it still extends into being a small business owner is we do want to go on vacation. We don't want to be tied to our laptops, and so how do we make that work for our life where it does support our life, it does support our financial future and can support our family or whatever? I think there's like a fine line there. So I don't know, man. Like I've been in retail, like, my whole adult life. And when slap bracelets came back a few years ago, I was like, man, like, I think I've turned into like, when I worked in corporate retail, I was in my 20s. So most of my bosses were like 40s, 50s, 60s, right? So I'm
Mhm.
like getting into that age now where I'm like, oh, I'm the person being like, I
Yeah.
remember when that first became a trend and then
Yes.
what, like
100%.
I'm so guilty of it, but I get it now. I get when my president or CEO used to kind of like
Yeah.
shake his head and be like, "Oh, like, they showed
Yeah.
this on, like, Paris runways, like, oh
Yeah.
god, we're gonna have to address that," so,
Yeah.
like, I do think retail is forever. I do think it's gonna go up and down, and listen, I think there's also a huge opportunity for someone who has a passion, who has products they love, who maybe even reinvents a product or reinvents how they do something, working with a private labeler at,
Yeah.
ASC, finding someone who can do a new formulation, something like
Yeah.
that, right?
What I'll say personally is without the experience. So there's the Dover Street markets of the world
Yep.
who have a cafe attached to it, and you can eat lunch and you can grab drinks, and it's an experience. It's more like going to see an art exhibit. Um, that's a very different model than the Nordstroms and the Barneys and the Saks of the world. And what I'm seeing is that big box retailer, those guys are popping up what I feel like more so in the discount off price world. I feel like people are gravitating towards the TJXs and the Ross and those guys more. Or to your point, it's Main Street. It's small businesses, Main Street USA. And you're finding everything from, the shop that is the non-alcoholic beverage shop and the gardening center in one, so you can come have your non-alcoholic beverages while you pot your plants and create a flower arrangement for your girlfriend. It's really creative. It's people being really creative and saying, oh, these two things don't necessarily connect in everybody's mind. But to me, I want a coffee shop inside of my gardening center, inside of my tailor, my dry cleaners. And who would have thought? So I do think it's the creativity out there that is really shining and the small businesses. And I love to see that because it's keeping us all on our toes. Like we all should go out there and be inspired a little bit more.
Totally. Well, and you see people like Bloomingdale's opening a small little storefront called Bloomies.
Yeah.
And, so, that's been happening for a few years now where big boxes are like kind of doing these little pop-ups that they're
Yeah.
calling them.
Yeah.
So, I think that's the other thing too that small retailers can take away is like the experimentation. Like you can experiment, you can try new things. You don't have to get stuck in your ways of this is how I went to a garden center and I had my toddler with me and I wanted to buy one little pack of I was like, I just
Yeah.
need this one thing. And they're like, well, you need to go inside to the counter and do this. And I'm like, you can't just check me out on your phone right here. Like, are you kidding me? And they're like, well, this is the way the owner's always done it for 30 years. And I'm like, but it's
Oh,
not for a modern
yeah.
mom. Like, that
Yeah.
is not realistic.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Yeah.
I think that if you are the person who you're saying that, you're thinking that, you work with someone like that, it's a nice time, like in 2008, to make a pivot and to see
Yeah.
what is else out there because, you know, we did see a huge increase, I think, during COVID with a lot
Yeah.
of categories, right? And now we're kind of seeing it peter off. And as you said, it's terrible, but I don't mind when stores weed themselves out. I don't mind when people close, mostly because I think that not everyone can do retail their whole life. If you
Yeah.
can, like,
Yeah.
God
I
bless you, you
agree.
are made differently, but, like, I don't think it's necessarily always a lifetime business anymore, and so, I
Yeah.
think just knowing that and knowing that you can have an exit and use that to, like, do the next thing. I mean, I see right now, like you said, as a great time to reassess, pivot, and say, are there other ways for me to make money within, the lane that I'm in? But
Yeah.
should I add drop shipping? Should I add private label? Should I add like
Yeah.
there are opportunities to do that.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. Well, I could talk to you all day long. We have to wrap it up at some point, but I know
I know.
you and I could go on and
Forever and
on.
ever. I know. I think my daughter is like pretending she's asleep too, and she's might be a little bit awake.
um, so I want to end with some fun lightning round questions. So there's no right or wrong, whatever comes to your mind. what is it that you hope to accomplish 5 years from now, let's say, from the Boutique Training Academy?
I want more retail businesses to stay in business, and I
Okay.
want more retail business owners to be happy and have more balance in their life while they still make money.
I love that. I love that. If you were talking to someone right now that said, I want to open a retail store, and you only had one piece of advice that you could give them, what would it be?
Hmm. Don't spend all your money out the gate. Like, have money in savings, know that you're gonna make mistakes, and don't be so bold to think I should spend all my startup money.
That's good. That's good. Who are 3 retail stores that you think are doing it really well right now?
Oh my gosh, that's a really loaded question.
Yeah, or
Um,
even one. I mean, if you have one retailer that you just think is doing it well, who would that be?
okay, I'm gonna say a person who I don't even know personally, but I follow her on Instagram.
Yeah.
Her store is called Teggy French, and she started as a blogger, and now she has a retail store, and I just really admire the way that she listen, she does photographs, like, in her guest bedroom or something. Like, she
Okay.
makes all these really beautiful, like her price point must be, like, 75 to, like, $200, somewhere in there, but she
Okay.
finds, like, really unique, beautiful pieces. The
Yeah.
way that she models them is really accessible to someone who's, like, my age, who I think is her customer, and she just seems like she's having fun. So I hope it's true behind the scenes because I don't know her, but I like what she's doing in the fashion space, and I think that she's doing it well. So, call me
Okay.
Teggy if you need some inventory management help.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know her, so I'm gonna go look her up. I love finding new retailers.
She's so cute too. I mean, she's just fun. The other person I really love, sorry, I'll say one more person,
Yeah.
and they're gonna be in fashion world just because that's what I'm super focused on, but
Yeah.
there's a woman named Courtney, and her business is called True by Courtney, and she does
Okay.
these, like, once or twice a month launches of these beautiful again, I'm obsessed with stores that can find styles that I'm like, "I've never seen that." Like, it's
Yeah.
stunning. Her
Yeah.
pictures are good. The simplicity of her business is so admirable, and she might not see it that way. I don't know her. I'm just an
Yeah.
admirer.
Yeah.
But the way that she just has these really small curated launches, and then she ships it all out, and then she kinda does it again. Like, there's something about that that feels, from the outside, really easy and easy to shop, where I'm
Okay.
sure it's taking a lot of thought behind the scenes. But those are 2, they're smaller, they're more independent, but I love watching them on Instagram so much.
I love that. Okay. All right. Teggy French, spell that for me.
So she's Teggy,
Okay. Okay.
French,
Okay.
French.
Okay.
And then
And
True by Courtney is her Instagram handle.
true.
True by Courtney. You'll
Okay.
find her. She's ooh, I shouldn't have hit my mic. I just really like both of them. I feel like they always stand out in my feed, and I think that's a key to getting people to click is, like, standing out in the feed.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so Taggy French and True by Courtney. Great. I love it. If you could have 30 minutes with anybody, who would it be right now?
Right now,
Yeah.
there's a guy called Alex Hermozi.
Okay.
He has, like, skyrocketed in himself in the, like, information era. Wait, I should say the Nordstrom brothers too. Okay. Like, I just feel like there's so many retail giants. I also would love to go meet my old president from, Bendel's, Ed Bucciarelli. Like, if he's still around, I'd love to just chat with him, but I think okay, I'm gonna go back to Alex Hermozi. So Alex Hermozi he's really in the, like, content space. He's all over YouTube. He's really easy to find. Hermozi.
Okay.
Hermozi.
Alex
Alex Hermozi.
Hermozi.
He's, like, 32 years old, he's got a beard, he wears, like a nose breathe right strip when he does his talks, but basically,
I love it.
he has built, like he has a system where he builds, like, up to $3 million businesses, and he
Wow.
gives away all of, like, how he does it. So, like, I
Okay.
started following his stuff, and I started actually implementing what he's talking about, and I'm
Okay.
actually seeing, like, really good results. So I like him because and I'll say this because I think everyone needs to become an online marketer now. You have to
Yeah.
know how to market yourself in the online world. that's what he teaches. And so I think he's a really easy way to like, you can go to him and again, like what he says will apply to any business. But the strategy and the way he breaks it down is so easy. He makes it sound so easy. And then when like I'm executing, I'm like, okay, this is like a lot of work.
Yeah.
But again, like he's also like, just go all in. Like what, you know, my husband said, after listening to this guy, like, there's no way I won't be rich. You know, like that's his like takeaway from it, you know? Because he also makes like, he makes it easy. And he makes it sound easy to make multi-million dollars, you know? And I think you need people like that in your life when you're an entrepreneur, because you can say like, I'll never make $1 million, I'll never make $5 million, you know? But when you have other people saying like, this is easy, again, it goes back to your mindset. Like you hang out with those people, you listen to them, and then you kind of trick yourself into being like, okay, I can be a millionaire too, or I can, you know, I can open 15 stores too. And so I love him.
Okay. Alex Hermozi. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Unexpected, but he's cool.
Love that. All right. We're going to look him up. All right. Well, first and foremost, Emily, this has been amazing.
Thank you so much.
I do want to wrap it up. And our last question, I just always like to ask everyone the same question, which is, what would you tell your 18-year-old self if you could go back and tell her one thing?
Trust that you're going to have everything you want.
I love that. I love that. You know, it's always, I love this question because what's so interesting is we go through a podcast and we talk about our life's journey and our life's work. And, you know, there's so many failures and mistakes, but I have never had anyone on the podcast say I would go back and tell somebody not to do that, because that's what makes someone's career or journey worthwhile. That's what put them where they are today. So I love to ask that. You know, I've had some funny ones where it's like, oh, you know, definitely double down on this stock. You know?
Oh yeah, no, I didn't think about that, but yeah, I mean, I would tell my like 38-year-old self to buy more Royal Caribbean during COVID. Like, yeah.
19-year-old self would be like, what's a stock? What?
Yeah.
But I love that. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Your knowledge of just the retail landscape, small businesses, being a retailer, being a boutique owner is so amazing. So much so that you're coming to ASD Market Week and you're going to oversee an entire day of education at ASD Market Week all around this topic. So I cannot thank you enough. I'm so excited because I think that our small businesses that come to ASD are going to learn so much from your knowledge. So thank you for that. And everybody listening, make sure that you sign up for Emily's day, because she's going to go into everything, you know, way past what we can talk about, you know, in an hour here on a podcast, but everything from inventory and buying to marketing to probably mindset. I have a feeling there's going to be some mindset talks in there.
A few, yeah. Well, and we're going to be able to leverage some other people who know different and more than I even do. So I'm excited to curate a day that feels really holistic for someone to even sit through all the talks all day and feel like they had like a mini, you know, conference in one day. Like I love what you guys are doing this year, and I'm so excited to be a part of it and just be a part of ASD Market Week, like family. Like I feel like you guys are doing things that are so unique. You have such interesting I said to you, I can't wait to walk the convenience store floor, and you guys laugh so hard at me. I glamorized it, I think. But I'm very excited.
I love it. I love it because that to me just proves that you're a great buyer. Coming from a fashion background, you're wanting to see something that is probably out of the realm of what you buy, but you know that there are sales opportunities in that particular market. So I love it. That just proves to me that you're good at what you do, that you're not, you know, stuck to your ways, so to speak. You're going to get outside of fashion. So I love it. Well, thank you again. And everybody make sure that you stay in touch with Emilie. Follow her on social, and we are so excited to put together that entire day for everyone. So until next time, I guess the one thing that I'm taking away from this is mindset matters. Mindset matters. So ASD Market Week, we'll see you next time. Be sure to subscribe to ASD Market Week's Let's Talk a Little Shop, a podcast that can be found on iTunes, Google Play, Amazon, or Spotify. See you there.